Hello there, English speakers, and we are here in the northern industrial zone in Ljusdal. So we have a lot of traffic and, well, industrial facilities, and we have a cherry plume, so small plumes, not cherries, but cherry plumes, which are plumes, not cherries. So now we are totally confused, but it's very beautiful at the moment and will be delicious later on. I think that cherries are actually more tasty, but cherry plumes are tastier than normal plumes. Today we will spread wisdom because it's the day of Odin, or Woden, as you might say in Old English. And Odin is the god of wisdom, so there will be lots of wisdom. But he's also the symbol for the state, the crown, as we call it in Sweden. And actually, in Hungary, they also have a crown that they are swearing allegiance to when they are entering to become a civil servant or a member of parliament. So that you can have a crown without having a monarchy. And we will see what Odin can teach us about who is actually in charge of that crown. But let's start by taking a big, deep cherry plume breath. And we'll see if we can find something more interesting. I talked about the importance of writing with, for example, a pen yesterday. And here you can see that there are some drawbacks. You can't get rid of the ink, regardless of how much you are cleaning your shirt afterwards. Maybe you can use chlorine dioxide. That might bleach it. So let's talk about deuterium first, to remind you about what that is. It's this heavy form of hydrogen, and if you have that in your cells, your mitochondria will not work well. So that's why all living things are trying to get rid of the deuterium. So that's why you have animal fats that can be made into 10% more water than the fat weight itself. You breathe in oxygen and then you make 1.1 kilo water out of 1 kilo of fat, and that is very low deuterium kind of water. But the plants, those bastards, they don't want deuterium either. So if they make sugars for their structures, they put a lot of deuterium into the sugar. So then you eat that and then you get too much. And then you might get cancer, because your body, as I said, normally it should be able to get rid of all this excess deuterium. But if it can't, then cancer starts to grow. Cancer will just go away and stop growing and shrink away if there is no deuterium. But you can also use chlorine dioxide, which is a bleach. But if you use it in low dosages, you can drink it, and then it will help your body to oxidate stuff. So maybe it can help this deuterium to be oxidized, and then you pee out the water and keep the good stuff, the low deuterium water and fat. So I have talked to Pierre Curie, or I've talked about Pierre Curie. I did talk to him now. We'll see if he ever sees that. But he has written a book on chlorine dioxide, and for example that it can help cure cancer. But he has never mentioned deuterium. So that's a blind spot. I of course don't claim to know more than him about medical stuff at all, but I'm good at spotting blind spots. That is what I do, simply. But he's famous for ivermectin, Pierre Curie, for curing COVID and for even for cancer treatments. But he prefers chlorine dioxide now. But ivermectin, there is something you need to know if you ever take it. It's the Herzheimer reaction. And the Herzheimer reaction is when parasites die. They are toxic. Parasites don't like to die, so just like most bacteria, they will start to become poisonous when they are dying, and that's a known effect called Herzheimer reaction. And here you see what will be a big flower. It's a horse chestnut that is starting to become summery. So one example here was from Sarah. She was taking ivermectin and she got sick with a lot of problems the third day. But then on the 7th day, she started to add some detox to her ivermectin protocol. And then on day 21, she felt better than she had ever been before because she got rid of the parasites. And a doctor, I don't know how much I will trust this, but it's something to consider at least. If your oncologist, your cancer doctor, doesn't know about parasite and sees cancer everywhere instead of that they might be eggs from a parasite or a parasite of some kind. So this doctor says that 50% of his so-called cancer patients, they were not cancer. They didn't have cancer. They had parasites. So of course, ivermectin, fenbendazole and stuff will work against parasites because that's what they do. And it might just be wrongly diagnosed. And that could explain why we see these studies, cancer and with different fenbendazole and membendazole and ivermectin, that they don't always work, and that might be because they are actually cancers and not the parasites that these medications just kills, because they disturb the working processes in the parasites. But some says that cancers have similar kind of metabolism as parasites. I don't buy that. I think they have gotten that wrong, but I might be wrong also. I'm not an expert on anything except blind spots. He also says that 70% of the autoimmune system, the autoimmune diseases, they are also caused by parasites. I do not believe that. Maybe they are part of the problem, but all the autoimmune things that are caused by vaccines. Maybe the vaccines helps the parasites, so I will not rule out that they are part of the problems at least. So Peter Thiel was proven correct when Thomas Massie lost to Ed Galbraith. So Peter Thiel has given up on politics. The only way to change how a society is run, that is through conspiracies and through murders. So don't be someone who can't do that, like Igor Kolomoisky, and get your guy Zelensky elected and then you get thrown into prison because you lost control of your puppet. Don't be like that. But Peter Thiel probably has full control over G.D. Vance, it seems, and a lot of other puppets. So what I'm going to say here is predictions. I don't say anyone should do anything that I predict, and I just predict. That's very important to say, so that I don't break any guidelines or end up in prison. So my prediction here is that there will not be any shootings of politicians and the donor class, the Epstein class that we know are criminals, but they get no justice. I don't think that, because there are smart people that are realizing that voting and campaigning will change nothing if you let them get away with murders. So no shooting, I predict, and instead maybe they will get lead poisoning from their food and from their drinks and other poisons, and glyphosate on their food, and maybe some toxic clothes that will maybe just harm them, to threaten them, or maybe to kill politicians and the Epstein class. Maybe there are still a lot of CIA people out there that are not liking the Epstein class, and they have access to a heart attack gun that they have presented in Congress 50 years ago or something. They probably have something like that now. And many people, I predict, will start to ask AI to get help to solve a murder. They know that someone has been murdered because of other evidence, but they can't understand how that was possible, because there is no known cause of death. And then AI might help you to explain all sorts of ways how to murder people. A prediction, don't do that. You might get caught also. And then there are people who are saying it just like a fact. There will be no change whatsoever unless you start murdering politicians until they start to behave better. That's always what has happened in history, from the night of the long knives, when the National Socialists took over in Germany, and every other instance of taking power over Odin, the crown, the state. And the Epstein class, of course, does exactly that. They murder people. If they can't primary them, they will try to murder them. They did that with James Trafficant, and he was a Democrat politician. In 2002, he was convicted for a lot of felonies with his taxes, some sort of racketeering, corruption, conspiracy, and he was using his staff to help out on his farm and his houseboat, allegedly, or he was convicted of that, which might be total bullshit. Because in 2009, and I assume before that, he spoke out strongly about the Jewish supremacy in Congress and how they are totally running out everything on, and this is horrible for the Americans. And in 2014, he had an accident with his tractor, and that might, of course, not have been an accident, but some things meddling with his tractor one can suspect. And Ernst Zundel explains what we all know. I've linked a video anyway, why the Jews got attacked by the Germans. Why did they turn against the Jews? And that was because they behaved like a mob, and they were cooperating to enslave and destroy stuff for the rest of society, just to keep themselves in power as the tyrants they were during the Weimar Republic. And they are behaving exactly like that when they are taking, when they primary people like Thomas Massie. If you really want to hate Israel, though, you can always read Israeli media. So do that. Israel brags about defeating Massie. An article, front page article on Haaretz, says that this was the most important political victory in all of the primaries for Israel. But this is, of course, a Pyrrhic victory. This just makes all Americans and all people across the globe even more pissed at their behavior, how they, in all sorts of sneaky ways, and throwing billions and then forcing Trump to promote this unknown, useless Ed, T-Rex Ed, as we call him. So this is a Pyrrhus victory, which means that, yeah, they won here, but it's the first sign that they will lose the war. But there is something really sketchy about the voting. So there were a huge turnout, 100% more than the last for 2 years ago. And still Thomas Massie only gained 19% more, despite doubling the turnout. So all of these new people Did they decide that suddenly this Ed that they never heard of, suddenly they believe that it's very important to vote for him because Trump said so, and all these elderly people, but all these young people that didn't vote before, they sure as hell didn't vote for Ed. Something is suspicious there. And in 2020, then Thomas Massie got 68,000 voters, so that's more than this election, and his opponent got 16. But then the Democrats in their primary got 71,000 votes. Now in this election the Democrats only got 41, so a lot less Democrats were voting. So it looks like there was a huge amount of let me say old people that never ever votes, have no interest in politics, and then they suddenly decided to not be registered as Democrats and register as Republicans, and then they vote, and they have no idea that any of this happened. They have some machinery behind it to commit massive voter fraud. That might be possible. I will remind you about that. All the big donors, or all the donors to Ed, they are former donors and current donors to Democrats. So of course they have access to the Democrat election cheating system. The good news here is that Thomas Massie is not stopping fighting, and his supporter demands that he runs for president in 2028. And he has the fighting spirit, and I hope that Thomas Massie will do his best to help other America First candidates win their primaries. If Thomas Massie comes there and campaign with them, that will be a big boost for them. Speaking about killing babies, which is a nice subject to talk about maybe, this MMR vaccine that should protect against measles, that basically doesn't kill anyone nowadays, but the vaccine does. Hundreds of young babies and toddlers have died in USA for this human sacrifice of babies. It's nothing else than that, and I predict, as usual, just a prediction. I don't say anyone should do anything except enlightening their blind spots. I expect that these pushers of vaccines, they will have accidents, and they might get depressed and commit suicide in all sorts of ways. That's my prediction. There is a big hullabaloo about digital ID in UK, Europe and other places. I think it's bullshit. So this has been a distraction for a long time. You want to have an ID so that you can know whom you are talking to on the internet. That's obviously good. What you do not want is that the Epstein class should handle the system. That's the problem, not the digital ID. And I can remind you about a clip from the TV series Yes, Minister. And this is a really educational TV series that explains how UK is run and has been run for a very long time. So if you want to know anything about the relationship between European Union and the United Kingdom, you should watch this very humorously but correct TV series. I've linked to that short video. But there, they also had something that the Brits really didn't want. They didn't want a European ID, which is a very practical thing to have, so that you can, well, talk to other people in other countries. That's what you want if you want to defend the Epstein class. You want to be international, you too. What is something to focus on, and I've talked about the importance to focus on what is important, and that is of course that we have to get rid of those who murder and destroy, and then the credit creations. Who has the right to print money out of nothing and then lend it out? That is criminal, of course, and it's a deadly sin in both Islam and in Christendom and in Judaism if you do it to another Jew. We should all have the luxury to print money out of nothing. We still have to, well, pay it back, but without usury, generally speaking. So that's what Hitler and many others have done. They printed money out of nothing, and they had sound money despite of that. Let's go up or down, depending on where you're looking. But out there, why don't we see any aliens? So I've linked to a video of Sabine Hossenfelder, and she has read a paper, scientific paper about some math about why we might not see any aliens out there, space aliens. She rated that paper 5 out of 10 bullshit, so that's pretty bullshitty, half bullshit. But still a little bit interesting, and I will add one other theory why we might not see it. That is, if you live in a universe where there are civilizations maybe on every solar system, you don't want to broadcast that you are there. If you see that some aliens are doing something weird that you can't explain on nearby system, you will of course send probes there, and they might be not so nice probes, like how many atom bombs does this civilization, how do they handle that? Do they start waging war against each other if we meddle in them, and even worse things? And they will of course send self-replicating devices and creatures there. So I think that many civilizations are simply hiding. That seems to be a smart thing to do in the universe. I comment to Grok. Grok hasn't answered. Maybe I should ask it again privately. But for the tunneling, you can tunnel by using explosives, or you can use these drilling machines. But why not use plasma? So you use electricity and you have some gaseous plasma, and you basically heat up the rock into gaseous plasma. And plasma, you can use magnetic fields of different kinds, and then you can funnel all these materials, and then you can actually make solid again, and you might regain most of the electricity and most of the heat that you put into it by reversing this plasma effect. So maybe that's something that can be done without using way too much electricity or power, because, you know, turning stone into gas and stone again should be a zero process. Of course, there will be leakage in the process and you will have losses, but it might be really efficient. And then you can, when you have it in plasma format, you can spin it around and stuff, and you get nice little piles of different fundamental elements. So you get a big pile of your rare earth and stuff that you might get as a byproduct from your tunneling. So that's my suggestion if you want to work with plasma physics, which we all want, but we can't afford a plasma lab for reasons. And finally, what you can do is program. Maybe you can't do that, but you can use AI. So I've linked to a lot of videos and resources about how to use cloud. That is the best programming tool, but you can use AI or Google, whatever also. What can it do? So one thing that it can do is to autocomplete. So you start writing a program, and then this program will be maybe wrong, but then you just change it and it autocomplete it correctly. So that's a good usage of it. If you want to program in a new language, and you know how to program, but you do not know exactly the syntax, and maybe are using a new API, which is what kind of some sort of language that you are using to speak to another computer, speak to another program, and then you have this interface between them is called an API. And if you don't know that, AI can simply explain how you use that, and then you can adjust it very quickly and learn a new language, a new API. And if you want to do some very normal code that people have done very similar stuff thousands of times on the internet, then AI can do that very well. What it definitely can't do, if you write something abnormal, it just can't do that. Even if you tell it, no, it will continue to use some library that people usually use, but you want to have something more efficient and have a better idea how to do it without getting it so bloated. AI will fail on that still every time. Interesting though, from AI Word, this Andrei Karpathy, he has worked on OpenAI and on Tesla, and now he's going to Anthropic. So they are stealing all the talents, it seems. So Anthropic is the place to be. And Tesla is looking like Tesla and xAI. I see them as one company because, well, sort of they are. But they have fired a lot of people and they go to other places. If Elon can have a good relation with them, they will continue to use stuff from xAI and from Tesla because they know how this works. So IBM had the similar position. They fired a lot of people and people quit, but then they ended up in other jobs where they of course bought hardware and services from IBM because they know how it worked. And in the same way here, Andrew Karpathy will of course he will not mind that Anthropic is buying computer power from xAI. On the other hand, he has worked for OpenAI, and that's true for Elon Musk and the leadership in Anthropic too, and they really do not want to have anything to do with OpenAI because they hate Sam Altman. So if you want to build a good network, don't be Sam Altman and a total shit. That seems to be a good advice. I've linked to a lot of links about that, but be careful. If you get really good at using AI to program, you can become a vampire, according to Mark Andreessen. So his name is Andreessen. Don't spell him like Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein spelled him wrong when he was explaining Peter Thiel and also Mark Andreessen for Ehud Barak, the defense minister of Israel at the time. He really can't spell Jeffrey Epstein. He also spells Lutnick wrong without CK, without the C. But Mark Andreessen, he seems to be a decent guy. I mean, he's of course very weird as he's one of the tech billionaires. But he has said that these deep state training camps, also known as the Ivy League universities, they should get defunded. So great of him for that. But he warns for AI vampires. So these are programmers that think that they are so productive now, they can write 60 times more code than ever before, and therefore they have to work as much as they can until they sleep on the keyboard, and they don't take care of their health, hygiene or anything except doing more and more programming, and they start to look like vampires. So that's the warning from Mark Andreessen. He knows a lot of vampires now. I got 60,000 views on my video about this Turk that is getting visited by a cat that wants to hug him every day because he gives it food. 60,000 on Facebook. That almost never happens on other platforms, but it's pretty common on Facebook. So I don't know what's up with that. If it had been on a better platform like X, like YouTube or BitChute or Rumble, then I would have gotten a lot of money. I only get name recognition on Facebook, but that might be very nice also to have. But today's video is about you who are just like me, very tired in my hand. But if you're tired of petting your cat and it needs to have some more rubbing, maybe you should just buy it a massage device, and then both you and the cat will be happy. And with that, bye here from Stenhamre, my old school.